I'm going to let you in on the biggest secret about prison. Getting out is scarier than going in.
Tell you not a fan. Listen, baby, this a Lamborghini, not a Benz.
You know, when you've been behind the fence for, the last nearly decade, you don't have to worry about, paying rent. You don't have to worry about that electricity bill, phone bill. You don't even have to worry about those 3 meals a day because everything's provided to you. I mean, sure, you do have to worry about violence, but that's a different type of stress, right? That's a prison stress. But when you're about to get out from that 6x8 cell out of that halfway house after being under supervision for, the last 10 years, right? The last 20 months I've been under the Bureau of Prison in a halfway house, living on a bunk bed with 15 bunk beds and 2 guys per bunk bed, guys snoring, lights on 24/7, them coming in to check, make sure you're sleeping. Urinating on a weekly basis to make sure you're passing your drug test, breathalyzing, filling out itineraries, making sure you have your pay stubs, making sure you're talking to your case manager on a weekly basis. Those little things add up, right? But the biggest fear for me is the unknown, right? And I feel that's what 99.9% of humans are scared of the most. The unknown, what's going to happen next. But what I've realized, though, is there's one thing I can be sure of. And ultimately, that's myself and how I choose to respond. So if you're watching this and looking how to deal with comfort about the unknown, the one thing I can tell you is you have to trust in yourself. If you focus on yourself and always being the best version of yourself, then regardless of what comes your way, you will be okay. The first thing I'm going to do when I'm out is go make some protein ice cream. Because you know why? Because I got to fend for myself and I got to figure out a way to make a living. And I know that this brand I've been building for the last 20 months in the Federal Bureau of Halfway House is counting on me to produce ice cream for all of the United States. And with the bags being delayed, the boxes being delayed, the sticks being delayed, I need to step up to the plate. I need to get to the office. I need to get to the manufacturer. I need to be there at 4:30 in the morning and driving this train. Because if I don't do it, no one will. And guess what? This is my company that I founded in the Federal Bureau of Prison. From putting bad things on the streets to now healthy treats. This is my comeback story, and I'm the only one that can tell it. This story has taught me that if you make no excuses, you can do anything. Because think about it, I came from prison. I'm still incarcerated under the Bureau of Prisons, right? I'm living in a halfway house. I have a curfew with $0 to my name because you got to remember the government took everything. So if I can do it from a Federal Bureau of Prison halfway house with no excuses, that means anyone that has the same mentality as me should be able to do the same thing. It doesn't matter who you are, who you know, what you've done. I'm a felon, a convicted felon, and I'm still able to use resources through my Rolodex to create what I've created today. There's so many things in life that doesn't matter, particularly the materialistic things, right? The Gucci, the Louis Vuitton, all these nice brands, like who cares, right? Of course, everyone likes nice things, but when you realize you've been at rock bottom, you're just happy to wear a white t-shirt. You're happy to put a hat on, right? You're happy to even have a pair of Nike shoes. But everything else doesn't matter. You're breathing, you're eating real food, you're exercising. So you need to take that mentality and utilize it. When you're only focused on material wealth and material things, you stop seeing people and you tell yourself it's okay to live at the expense of others. And that's what allowed me to tell myself it was okay for what I was doing. So now I'm focused on others and the positive impact I can have on their lives. It's from going to selling drugs to now seeing just one kid, eating protein ice cream is more rewarding than all the money I've had in the past. And now I understand that real wealth and happiness comes from putting others first. That first night in the halfway house was just, you feel like you're almost out of prison, right? But there's still rules and regulations that you have to follow. So for me, I slept with one eye open, making sure, I wasn't going to have any issues in there with other races, because now you're not around your particular race that you live with. So now you're sleeping with blacks and Mexicans and white collar guys and sex offenders, and you have everyone in one dorm. So for me, that's a lot different from when I used to live in a 6x8 prison cell with someone from my race. And for me, that was an eye opener and shocking, because there's so many different politics that you abide by in prison, but when you come out to the halfway house, it's the rules change. The biggest challenge for me was realizing that guys are picking up their phone and hitting like an application like Amazon or Uber Eats, right, or Grubhub, all these different apps that are delivering stuff within 25 minutes or one day. It never used to have that, right? Or connecting to your Bluetooth and watching a movie in your bunk bed at the halfway house. I've never had Bluetooth before. I've never had a Netflix on my phone. This is all new to me, and it was just like time warp, right? The challenges for me running my business out of the halfway house is obviously, being able to set up appointments anytime you want. I have to get a pass for every time I move, right? So if I have a meeting in Santa Monica, for instance, I have to make sure I get an itinerary in a week before. If I have a conference call in, say, Florida at 9 in the morning, that means I have to be somewhere at 6 in the morning because it's 3 hours ahead, and I have to be prepared for that meeting. And I can't just be prepared taking a meeting at the halfway house. It's unprofessional. So for me, I got to make sure wherever I need to be, I look as professional as possible with the California Ice Protein brand behind me, and my Zoom calls or my Teams or my Google Meets, whatever meeting I'm having, has to look professional, because when you're running a business, it's a first impression. I've had a couple people, go into these meetings and they find out about my story and they look down upon it, right? They frown on it. But once I start talking and sound educated and telling them about this concept we have, a lot of people believe in this comeback, and I've had nothing but, positive responses to creating this brand. But, the one thing I've really discovered is excuses bring challenges. So make no excuse. A lot of people will look at the landscape of me being in a Bureau prison, right? Under the Bureau prison roof, and be like, oh, I can't do that, or he can't do that. There's guys in the halfway house that are just laying on their bed all day long because they don't believe in themselves, and they make excuses. And now, in addition to just the protein ice cream, I want to share, this no excuse mentality and how it can make a difference on other people. What I've come to see is the only difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person are the excuses. I've been knocked down many times. I've been knocked down playing football. I've been knocked down, playing volleyball. Anywhere in life, you're going to get knocked down. It's not, you haven't lived life if you haven't got knocked down. Even Mike Tyson got knocked down, right? So with that mindset, you got to realize that that's part of life. And you got to realize that you need to be able to get up and wipe it off, right? So the things outside of your control can knock you down. But once you're down, getting back up is fully in your control. So in life, getting knocked down isn't a choice, but staying down is. So get off your ass and get back up. Getting out of the halfway house is just a stepping stone. We haven't even got close to that final reward. That final reward is going to come when I built this brand to, a $1 billion company and sell it to a Dryers or a Hershey's or a Haagen-Dazs. That's when we can say we've become a success. But the real success for me is going to be seeing the impact I have, the brand has, not me, but the brand has on people's health, energy, fitness, livelihood. Even if I could, bring obesity down by 1% in America, I couldn't tell you how happy that would make me.
I did some fucked up shit, but I was starving and no fussing, just hit 'em up, ain't no arguing.